And thank you very much for Iraq to give me the opportunity to talk about fertility today, which has affected my life for a long time. So that's why I'm here today to talk about fertility, of my own experiences and what I think. And I hope other people who've had experiences with fertility will be able to share their experiences maybe after the recording is ended for this afternoon, I should say. So yeah, I'm very pleased to be here to be able to talk about my experiences.
Great, thank you. Thank you for being with us. So shall we hit it with the first question, which is, do you think that there is a stigma around infertility?
100%. I think there is a stigma from a South Asian perspective. I think there definitely is. And particularly for me, when I got married in 1992, a long time ago, the expectation was to have a baby within that first year. And I found that people in my community, family members, from my in-laws and from my own family, the question was always, even after the few months, why are you not pregnant? Why are you not pregnant? Is there something wrong with you? So that's even in the first few months. People are asking you, why are you not pregnant? What's wrong? Are you not trying hard enough? Very personal comments, directly to your face, with no filter, actually. And people who didn't even know me,
Sobia, you're muted. Accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, no,
that's not like me at all.
I'm sorry, that was me. I was trying to mute everybody. Can I just ask everyone other than Nesreen and Sobia if you can just mute yourselves? Sorry, Sobia, I accidentally clicked on your name. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you heard, so where should I?
It's just the last sentence that people who don't know you and still would ask.
Yeah, so people, when I was living in Karachi when I got married, but when I came over to England for family reasons, people in the street would ask me. So people who'd never even spoken to me, but knew I was the daughter of so-and-so, because it's a small community in Oxford of British Asians, they would just ask me in randomly. I'd be doing shopping in Tesco's and someone would say, oh, you've been married for a year now, why are you not pregnant?
Oh my God.
So I got it a lot, and sometimes it was I was quite shy at that point of my life. I was very young and I didn't really know what to do, so I would try to just smile and say, oh, it will happen, but I found it really difficult because it went on for many years.
How did it affect you mentally? I mean, and emotionally? How would you feel that people are, it's like accusing you of something?
It affected me a lot. It affected me to the point where my neighbour at the time in Oxford was having babies. She had 5 children in total. And it seemed like every year she had a baby. And I actually never could actually speak to her because I found it too difficult to talk to her. And I remember once she didn't obviously know what was going on. It was an English lady who I'm very good friends with actually now. She didn't know what was happening to me personally. And I remember she came round once when she had her 4th child, I think it was, or her 3rd. And I couldn't let her in my house. And I just spoke to her at the door. And it was really rude of me, but I just couldn't let her come in because I just couldn't deal with it. And I was awfully rude at the door. I just said I was really busy, and she just popped next door. And I remember this to the day, and we've spoken about it actually. And I just couldn't let her in because I couldn't speak, because I couldn't handle looking at this little baby.
You can't help yourself, yeah.
Yeah, so I felt a lot of guilt and shame.
Shame. Do you think if, excuse me, if people didn't interfere with your private life, without filter, as you said, do you think that you would have felt the same?
I think it would have been easier, because when it got to when it got to like 3 or 4 years later, I'd be the one that if I went to a religious function or something, which I try to avoid, people would point out, oh, that's so and so's daughter. She hasn't had a child yet. I wonder what's wrong with her. So people would talk about me quite a lot. I think because a lot of people knew my parents in Oxford. So, and some people were quite kind as well, would say, oh, don't worry, in their own way, it will happen. It's God's will. It's Allah's will. It will happen. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And I'm like, so.
Have you been to the doctors?
Yeah. Are you praying 5 times a day? Because that will help you. Not that it did, but so I think yes, it would. But I would like to say that some people didn't mean to be nasty. They just didn't have the right words to articulate, or they didn't understand, and everybody who spoke to me, they had children, you know. So there was no one that I knew that was like me, and I felt quite lonely and quite ashamed to talk about it to anyone. The only person I used to talk about it to really was my husband, and to my aunt, because my mother had passed away quite a long time ago, so I don't have any sisters. So one of my aunts, who I'm very close to, I would talk to her, but I felt that she didn't really understand, because when she got married and had babies, she had them so easily that she didn't quite understand how it felt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, of course. When you have the experience yourself, it helps you to help others with the same experience. Yeah, but it's interesting that you said you were talking to your husband. You don't mind asking these personal questions. It's just for others to help. That he was supportive to you.
He was supportive, but I think he struggled a lot because he's the only son in his family, and he has 4 sisters. So it can't get worse than that in that respect. So he had a lot of pressure to actually remarry someone else. You know, he was offered, you know, if she can't do it, then get someone else to replace her.
Of course.
So so I think it was in a way really difficult for him, because he was being pulled quite a lot.
So this would lead us to the second question. So there is a stigma, do you think, for both men and women for infertility?
My personal experience, definitely there is a stigma, but it's always the woman's fault. From my point of view, it's always the woman's fault. You're not trying hard enough. Maybe you're overweight. Maybe you know, someone said you're not praying enough. Maybe you use contraceptive early in the marriage, so that's hindered your chances. Maybe there's someone else in your family that can't have kids, and you've got that gene. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I do think I do think it's not easy for men either, and I think my husband's not a very talkative person, so he doesn't give much away in that sense, but I know when we did speak about it, he struggled
I'm sure, as you said, there was pressure on him, and you know, you can, sorry for the word, you can change her, you know. She's not giving you
definitely.
So get another one. And yet, of course, he didn't, and it was, I think it's double or something triple, because he was the only son. And I think in our communities it's the same in Asia, that you carry the name. You need to have a sibling, so to carry the family name and tradition and inheritance and all that stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage that goes with fertility for the man as well, and there is a lot of pressure. And I mean, I can only talk about my personal experience, and I've seen it with other distant family members, that I think my husband found it very difficult. And I think he didn't talk about it too much because he didn't want to expose himself to any of his family members. But I mean he talks about it now because our life is different, but I know that a lot of his family members were saying, you know, you could keep this wife, but you could get a second wife. She could stay in Pakistan. This one could stay here. So that can't be easy for a man who is the only man in his family. And there's a lot of female pressure from his siblings and his mum in some aspects. But I understood that. I understood that why they were doing this. I didn't like what they were doing or liked what they were saying, but I understood because that's what they know, and in a way they know that's what they've been taught, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a bit strange that you said the pressure was mainly from female. So his sisters and his mum, not his dad.
His father passed away a long time ago. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So it's fine.
So it's mainly.
I'm sure there were other family members, but obviously they were the main important people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it makes it more important for him. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So, how do you think a woman? How might a woman be stigmatized? What might the consequences be for a woman who has fertility issues?
I think in our community, it's always the woman. It's always the woman's fault. It can't be the man's fault. Of course, the man has got perfect sperm, so it must be her fault. I've never known it in my community that some would even question it would be the man's fault. I've never heard, and I talk about this subject a lot in family and friends. I've never heard a man willing to go and get his sperm checked. So it's got to be her fault. It has to be. I mean, who else can it be? Which sounds ridiculous, but it's the stigma is always on a woman, and it's the family pressure, but also the community's pressure, because she's the one that's going out in the community. She's picking up. She's going to work. She's seeing people. She's perhaps going to the supermarket. She's the one that's out there. So people will say something to her, and probably feel a bit apprehensive to say anything to the man.
Yeah, there was I was reading this fictional book. I think it was fiction. I can't remember, but it was quite a good book, and it was describing this woman who was in a marriage, and that she was expected to have children, and etc. And however, they could just never conceive. And from both sides of the family, they're really pressuring the husband to remarry, and actually they had a second wife at one point because they were like, I can't have children, and the woman was constantly feeling like it was her fault, and she was very invalidated. And then over time, actually she had a one-time affair with, I think, her husband's friend or something. It was a very big plot twist at the end, so I don't want to like spoil it, but and then at the end she actually she had a child and raised it as if it was their own. And then so it was kind of like, at the end of the day, it was the husband's fault, yet I saw throughout the story how the woman was constantly blamed for it. And like how, like, even both sides of the family, they were thinking, oh, maybe the husband should remarry because you are unable to have a daughter. And I mean, and it was a really interesting story, because I never even thought that was like a thing. So yeah,
and although from a medical point of view, it's easier to test a man for infertility than a woman. So, it's one thing, one test, and that's done. And then, if it's you, then, you save a lot of hazard for women to go through all these tests and all this calculation and stuff. It's not a straightforward thing. But no one would take it, as you said, no one would think that, oh, maybe let me exclude this little thing first. No, it's always her. I think it's always her because she's the one, as you said, she goes out to communities and, supermarket. So if she's pregnant, it will show. While for the man, you could ask and they say, yeah, but my wife is now pregnant, for example, So I think she's the one who's carrying the baby. Yeah.
I mean,
to the woman, this thing,
Yeah. I've got a very distant cousin, and they are having fertility issues. And the first question I asked her was, has your husband got tested? And she said, no. And I said, well, he needs to. And I said, oh, do you want your uncle, my husband, to speak to him? Because he, I don't want to talk about my husband too much, but he did get tested in the first year, which I'm very proud that he did. He didn't tell anybody except me. He didn't tell his family because he couldn't. he felt he couldn't, but he did, and I'm very proud that he did that in the first year that we were married. So I said, did you want your uncle to talk to your husband? She goes, oh, no, it wouldn't work. And I said, well, you must speak to him if he has to get tested, because that's your first kind of journey, you know. And they've been married, I think, 10 years now, and it's not happened.
Oh my God.
And that's a young person. I mean, you know, and my story is quite an old story, but I'm talking about a younger person.
Because the thing is, he could, in the first place, divorce her or keep her and marry another one. And then with another one, with the second one, or no children. And it can go on, you know, if for example, the grandmother is really powerful in the family, she would keep pressure, get a new one. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with my son. It's all with the other woman there. So you're turning two lives into misery rather than just, you know, get on with it and see that it's, you know, it's something that could be done. And some conditions with the male, some things could be treated, you know, instead of just keeping on doing the same wrong thing and expecting better results. Yeah, I'm talking medical point of view. So yeah. So to the next question is, some communities may believe that the ability to give birth is in God's hands, so it's faith. How might this be harmful? Is there a place for both religious and medical understandings in the area?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think add it to you. You have to pray. You don't pray your 5 prayers. This makes it, you know, will help. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. People used to say to me, are you praying 5 times a day? You know, are you connected to God? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? I mean, these things go hand in hand. You know, if you want, you know, I do pray when I want to, but medical, you know, medical investigation is very important. So I think some people are, even now, are still frightened to sometimes look at medical interventions because they may not feel comfortable with their GPs, and you know, such as IVF, which I had over 6 times, which was stressful. That was quite a big deal for my husband and I to go down that route, because we wanted to understand the fertility process. What did it actually mean? And we you know, and I spoke to my father at the time, what he thought about it, and because a lot of religious leaders were sort of implying that but IVF is wrong and it's haram, meaning it's a sin and all this. So my dad, his wise words were, do what you and him feel are best. You're the ones that are going to live with it, so you deal with what you think is best. So that's what we did.
That's very wise.
Yeah, so I think we had IVF 6 or 8 times. I try not to remember those times because they were horrific.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, again, as a medical person, as a doctor, it's oh, someone is writing, I thought this is about modern slavery. No, it's about fertility. So it doesn't go against each other. You know, you can still believe and you can still, you know, practice your religion, but this doesn't stop you from going through the medical route, you know, and find where the medicine could help you, and if there are any tests or procedure or operation or whatever, any investigation that can help. I don't think this will be against God's will. And if it's God's will that you continue without children, then nothing medical would help. But if God, you can have children, you know, with investigations and with any possible treatment, then you can have children. So it's not against each other. But as you said, in some communities, it is against God's will if you do all these procedures. And there were lots of drama in Egypt, for example, from my community about it, and how people were against it and were fighting. No, you shouldn't. It's against Allah's wish. to, you know, Allah didn't want you. So, you know, and the first thing would be just to marry another one, of course. That's the solution. But
yeah, to me that's not the solution. That's just an excuse.
yeah, of course.
But
Again.
I do think for me as a Muslim, Islam teaches you about education, about understanding, and about to improve your knowledge. That's how I feel Islam is to me. And, you know, to me, God doesn't want you to just sit there and pray all day and that's your solution to everything. That's part of our life. Whether we choose to do it is a different thing. But actually, science is really important. It's part of our life. So to me, religion and science go hand in hand. I mean, that's my point of view. And that's how I've been raised and to believe. I think when I was talking about IVF to my dad, it was quite hard to have that very personal conversation. But,
yeah, you're so brave.
He was okay, actually. I was quite surprised. But he said, do what you feel is best. You don't need to ask an imam. You don't need to speak to anybody else. It's between you and him. If he's happy to go through this IVF process, and this is what you want, then that's what you should do.
Yeah. Can I ask you about something else here, considering the science and religious? I have the feeling, and from my personal experience again back home, is the religious is more imposed and asked for the poor people and probably uneducated.
Oh yeah, it's frozen for a second.
Oh, sorry. So I think the religious is imposed and pressured on poor people. So if people are rich and they can't afford the IVF or whichever treatment possible, they will do it and they will not say that is against Allah. While if someone who's poor and going to ask an imam or priest, I don't know, I don't have this experience from Christianity. We don't say no, but maybe, then they will say, no, you shouldn't. It's against Allah's wish. What do you feel about this? What do you think?
That's a difficult question. I think whatever you do, you have to do what is best for you and your husband or your partner, and you have to live with that decision. So for me, that's the important thing. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in there and help with that question, but to me, for us, that's what we decided. We did wait a long time. I think I had IVF in 1999. The last one I had was in 1999, got married in 92. So it's a long time ago. And luckily we could just about afford to do it. I mean, we didn't have any money after that forever. But I think for us as a couple, it was something that we thought we should try.
Yeah, but I'm thinking is how about it? It's the same that applies for any abuse to the woman, like FGM or forced marriage or first cousin. I'm not saying it's absolute. Of course, nothing is 100%, but it's more enforced on the poor women. That's my understanding, and that's my feeling.
Yeah, because there's no choice there, is there?
Yeah, even if they saved, so this drama I'm talking about, they saved a lot of money, they sold the house or whatever property just to have this successful IVF. But everyone was against it again, and divorce her and marry another one, or you're just fighting Allah's wish, or Allah's decision. But because I heard these things about other medical procedures, like for example, some communities, the imam or let's call it the religious leader, that says, for example, blood transfusion or organ transplant is against Allah. If God wants you to die, then you should die. You shouldn't help it. So I have the feeling it's the same with this.
Yeah.
Or am I thinking anyone can chip in, guys? Yeah.
Guys, sorry, it's Justina. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Justina.
Hi. You know what? Me, as a Polish person, having Moroccan partner, it's all about compromise, believe what is good for you, like the Sobia mentioned. You really need to feel clear conscious to yourself. You need to feel okay to yourself. You need to make decision with the loved one, your husband. So this is husband and wife. And I do understand that so much different in culture. I really kind of, me personally, in my opinion, I really feel sorry for the, you know, I don't know, Asian ladies where they perhaps feel more pressured from their family, because that doesn't go anywhere. That will stay. That's the way it is. But I do believe that every single individuals need to find their own way, what is right for you. Sobia, for example, did mention you made the decision based on your experience. And I do believe that is just, you know, all about education as well, because no religion tell you, you need to die, you need to sit. God gives you medicine, you know, world moving forward, and you are the one make it good choices for you and your family.
Yeah, that's really good, Justina. Yeah,
I agree.
In my opinion, isn't it?
I agree, but I think that what you're alluding to or saying, Nasreen, is when you have the choice, when you have the power, when you have the ability to make that choice, when you have the freedom, when you have the financial assistance, all those things that go together. I mean, if I was somewhere else, not educated, have no financial means. I mean, my father paid for half of our IVF because we didn't have all the money. So I keep on going and going and going. I actually didn't stop the IVF until the consultant said, your body cannot take any more now, you need to stop. So I probably did have more than 8. He said, you know, you must stop now. It's not going to happen. And that was a devastating experience, because I probably would have sold the house and just went on and on and on, which I'm glad we didn't. But I'm glad we did do some of the IVF. I do wish now that I had stopped probably earlier, if I knew what I knew now, which is, hindsight is a great thing. But when you're desperate, and I was desperate, I mean, there was one incident which I feel quite ashamed to mention, but I'm trying to explain how desperate I was. That I was at the top of my road, and this lady had left her baby outside in a pram, and she went in for 20 minutes. The baby was outside, because I stood there and watched how long. And I could swear I could possibly have at one point thought I could take this baby home. Why she left it outside for 20 minutes? Somebody could take it, and maybe I should take it. And I feel very ashamed to admit that. Obviously, I did not take the baby. But that's how desperate I was becoming. And I didn't realize how desperate I was perhaps at the time. But when I reflect on it, and as I knew that I was be talking about this today, I've been thinking about it a lot. But that's how desperate I was. And I'm not that kind of person that would do anything against the law, but I was so desperate. So desperate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very young, so I probably don't have any experience with. I don't have any experience with, you know, wanting a child or even having to go through that process with family. So obviously, I probably couldn't provide like the best like kind of insight. However, I mean, from hearing it, I kind of see it with my own experience with religion, and although I'm not like part of like Islam or Muslim or anything, and I'm kind of a mix between Catholic and Christianity and spirituality. For me, it's kind of knowing a balance between my mental health and my needs with my religion, I guess, because I can understand the pressure of it. But I mean, I guess like with what Sobia said, like if I was to that point of such like despair and sadness, and I kind of think I don't think God would want me to be in such a state of sadness, if that makes sense. Like I feel his wishes are for me to be really happy, and I think it's aligning what I want with that happiness. And I can imagine obviously if someone wants a child, and even if it's through the means of like IVF and stuff, if that's the way that you can reach that happiness, and if God wants that happiness, then I guess he'll like help you, lead you to that way. I don't know.
Yeah, again, I'm still focusing on if a poor woman or uneducated, what would she do? She can't really, even if the solution is IVF, or even the solution simple as medicine or an operation, single operation, she's got, I don't know, a tumor, a blockage, you know, lots of things, but she can't afford it. And she will just have to live with this stigma and shame that she is infertile, And of course, she can't explain to everyone who asks her and put their nose in her private life and ask why you don't have children up till now. And she would say it's God's wish, for example. So it's really double the stigma, double the shame on poor women and on poor uneducated women. It's too much, and they can't really help it. As you said, people would sell their houses, but she doesn't have a house to sell. You know, they are people who work on daily income, you know. So it's really,
it's a huge stigma
or institutionalization. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Casey.
Oh no, it's fine. I was just going to say, then I guess it's just the culture, and it's just like harming marginalized communities like that and women, and having that kind of shame culture on that thing, which is in of itself the issue. Because if that wasn't such an issue, then poor women wouldn't be as shamed on it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Sobia?
I was gonna try and say that for poor women and who don't have access to education or any finance, they have no choice. There's nowhere to go. They're just there, and maybe they're the ones that don't have the medical issue. Maybe it's their husband, but they're not going to be able to. Maybe that he's not have access to medication either, or you know, because there are lots of things if you have low sperm to improve your sperm. I mean, it can be quite a simple. You know, simple things can happen for men in that sense. You know, there are lots of other issues. So, but I totally understand that. But I would also say for someone like me who did have access to funds, who was educated, it was one of the horrendous times of my life. And I've had lots of times where it's been difficult, but those were probably some of the worst times that I ever faced, was people judging me and saying things to me and
to you for something that you didn't do.
We had no control over it. And I think statistically, 1 in 7 couples in the UK have problems with conceiving. So that's huge. There are lots of people in the UK who come under the unexplained category. So experts can't find anything wrong with a woman, but can't find anything wrong with a man. And you know, that was me and my husband. They couldn't find anything. And for me, that was even worse, because I thought, I wish there was something wrong with me, because then it could be fixed. In my head, that's what I thought. But there was one point, I think it was 1999 when I had my last treatment. I said to my husband, which some of my friends know about, I said to my husband then, I said, if you want to marry someone else, then maybe you should, because it's never going to happen. I can't have any more IVF. They're literally refusing us because my body was so tired and literally, you know, battered. So I said to my husband, I think you should marry someone else because it's not going to happen. And I said, I gave him an ultimatum. And I think I would have stuck to it. I'm not sure. I said, you've got 1 year now to think about adoption. I'm giving you 1 year to think about it, research it, do what you think about it. And in that year, I will ask you again, let's go through the adoption route. If not, then let's get divorced, because it's not going to happen.
Because Les Parry was asking, is adoption an option in these situations? So you give him a year to test it. Just think outside, you know, if he said no to adoption, would you get divorced to try adoption with someone else, or this is too personal, you don't have to answer?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh yeah.
But as you know, we did adopt. So a year later, he said, let's look into it, and then we did. And then in 2003, we adopted our first child. So.
And you're happy with your decision, of course.
Best thing we've ever done in our lives.
Yeah.
And he actually says to me now, I wish I didn't take a year to think about it. I said, well,
wow.
I told you I was right.
As usual.
No, not as usual. But yeah,
at least you have good foundation, you have support, you have your father helping you financially at the time. You said you had supportive husband, you communicate properly, but there is an issue where some women, they don't have that, and consequences of that is like, mental health, really poor condition, they get divorced, depression, anxiety. So it's just like, depending on the person and the foundation, what support they have, their family really.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I totally agree with that. But
really quickly, Nesreen, did you want me to, or Sobia, did you want me to continue recording? Just because we've got, I'm conscious that we don't record everybody else. So just tell me when you'd like me to stop the recording, and when you're.
I will keep quiet.
We don't want anyone to keep quiet.
No, not at all. I'm just conscious that for other people's kind of privacy, we were just going to keep the recording to Nesreen and Sobia. But when you're kind of opening up the discussion a bit more, let me know and I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Justina. I was lucky, but even though I was lucky, we struggled. I don't want to. We struggled a lot. I mean, there was a point where in the IVF we could have got divorced quite easily. I mean, IVF is a very challenging medical experience, not just for the woman, but for the man as well. It's really, really difficult. You're up on a high having the treatment, and then when you don't get pregnant, it's traumatic. I mean, it mentally killed me, literally. I mean, I struggled a lot, but I am a very strong person. And I think my husband probably suffered the most in the IVF because he never ever spoke about it. He wouldn't. He's just the way he is. He doesn't say much anyway. But he struggled quite a lot, and I think he started losing his hair and stuff because of the stress. I'm not belittling anyone else's experience, but I was lucky because I had a lot of support from my father financially. And I had an aunt who helped me with the mental aspect. But even we, being lucky, we struggle so much. So what I'm trying to say, someone who has not got any of that, I don't know how they cope.
It is a big issue. It is a big stigma for something, as we said, you have no control over on it. It's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault.
It's no one's fault.
It's not anybody's fault. And still people will stigmatize you. I mean, not you, but stigmatize the woman for it.
Yeah, I mean, even when we adopted, we discussed adoption together, and obviously some family members knew. They were so against it. It.
Yeah, can you, I don't know if you are here to talk about adoption.
No, we're not really, but it's part of the journey for me.
Yeah, it is part. It could be a solution for a lot of families, but as far as I know, in Islam, adoption is not accepted. So that's why I'm not sure about Christianity, even in religious.
Yeah, so I'll talk about it briefly because I know we're talking about fertility, but for me, fertility and adoption go hand in hand because that's our journey. But for me in Islam, so I went back to my dad and asked him, Dad, this is what we want to do. And he said, you should do what you want. Oh, that's his usual line. But don't adopt any relatives' babies because they've already got family, because that's an option that a lot of Pakistani people do. They adopt their brother's child or their sister's. And my dad was quite against that because in his own family, someone did that and it went very wrong. And he said, if you're going to adopt someone that needs parents. Don't adopt someone that has parents. So that's the only thing that he said, but he said, that's my view. You can do what you want. So in Islam, we looked at that. And in Islam, it doesn't say the word adoption. It says guardianship. And one of our prophets actually did take over a child and was the guardian to that child. So there were lots of Muslim people have said to me, what you've done is wrong, this is that, whatever. And my personal view is, that's what you think, that's fine. This is what we've done, we're happy with it, and that's that. So I'm quite hard on that line. I don't say to people that's what their solution should be. It's for the other person to decide what their solution is. This is what we felt was the right for us, and that's what we did. And we adopted a son later afterwards, 4 years later. So we have 2 children.
Yeah,
and we're
but
very happy with what we've done. And this is our life. And if it is wrong, then that's our problem.
yeah, you're happy with it. That's fine. Of course, it's your life, and I'm totally respecting your dad. I mean, the way he answers your question, just amazing. You've got a wonderful dad. But the thing is, because you were here, you were allowed to adopt. If you were in Pakistan, would adoption be an option? Because I know in Egypt it's not an option.
So in Pakistan, it is an option. So my husband's oldest sister, who's divorced, she adopted before us. So she's a single woman. She adopted. Wow. And actually, I think that gave my husband the confidence to do it. I don't think actually it did give him the confidence. So she was adopted in 2000, her child, and we adopted our daughter in 2003. And actually, people weren't just anti-adoption with us in the Muslim community. A lot of them were, if you're going to adopt, why do you want to get a girl? And it was like, so as you know, in a lot of our community, the girls are not as appreciated as they should be. And my husband comes from 4 sisters, so he said, if we're going to adopt, we're definitely going to get a girl first, because a girl is more. There's more girls in the orphanage where we adopted from anyway. So he said that he wanted to adopt a girl first. So that's why we chose a girl.
That's amazing. That's how you have a supportive husband. Yes, that's really good. Thank you for sharing your experience about this adoption, because it's a big thing. And in a lot of communities, and from my personal experience, I mean, my cousin couldn't have children and she went through your route. I can't remember if she's gone through IVF or anything. And her sister had many children, and she said, oh, if you're going to adopt, or if you want a child, take one of mine. And you say it as if you're take one of my toys. It's not that easy. And bless her, she couldn't adopt because of the community and because it's not accepted in Egypt, and she just left without children just because of this horrible thing that, on the other hand, if she adopted, she would have helped a child that's already doesn't have parents, and she would have been happy herself. So it's a win-win situation. But,
I feel Islam does teach us to take on other children. So I mean, in Islam, orphans, and my children are orphans from what we are aware of, God teaches us to look after orphans in whatever shape or form. So to me, that is what my religion is telling me, that we should look after these children. So adoption might not be the word in the Hadith or the Quran, but it's a different way. And as someone's put here, Khadija, I think, about the differentiations between culture and religion, definitely, to me, my religion is telling me to do this. But if someone else can't see that, then that's their issue, not mine.
In Islam, you are allowed to adopt. Prophet adopted Zayd bin Harith.
Yes.
And in Islam, that's what I put, like, we need to differentiate between the culture and the belief. If your society does not allow you to adopt, is the culture, is not religion. In religion, you are allowed to adopt. In my country, we adopt. I am Muslim, we are allowed, and there is things like awareness of religion, knowledge, and the culture is completely two different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadija. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, they say, as you said, it's a guardianship, but you shouldn't give them their name. That's what they say.
Yeah, and that's true. But the only reason why, sorry, we're digressing a little bit here, but I do think it's important to make it clear is that if you do take on another person's child, the only point where you don't give them your name is when you know what their true name is. Yeah. So for my children, because we adopted an orphanage in Karachi, we actually put in a newspaper, we've taken this child from this orphanage on this date. Does anybody know who this child belongs to? And do you know the name of this child? So we waited until if anybody got back to us, which no one did in both incidents, because if we knew the name of their father's surname, we would have given that surname, because we don't know they have our surname. But
That's
my children
interesting.
know that they are adopted, because in Islam, transparency is the key.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, thank you for this. So, how can we work to break this stigma around infertility?
So I think, as Justina was saying, it's about education, it's about awareness, it's about changing people's mindsets. So I will become a mother-in-law maybe one day, I hope. And it's for me to change my thinking about this. And I think every mother, every person should change the way they think about it. I mean, my daughter's only 17 and she said, I'm not gonna have children, I'm gonna adopt, because it's a better thing to do. And I'm like, great, if that's what you choose to do, that's what you can do. So I think it's having the conversations with my son and daughter. It's my responsibility to educate them, to have a better understanding of this, and hopefully that will carry on.
Yeah, I think to make it clear also, if we can speak about it, that it's both partners in this. It's not the woman. It's nothing. Not everything can be blamed on the woman. So we need more education, I think, about this. That it's both. And as you said, in your case or other cases, the woman is fine, the man is fine. It just together they can't have a child.
I think. I mean, Nesrin, you even mentioned it, how sometimes the mothers can be the ones that pressurize the husbands to kind of actually divorce their wives and stuff. So maybe it's actually really, I think maybe it's even more important to actually educate the older generations. I think maybe even that's more important, because they're the ones that are pressuring the family and spreading these things around. So maybe that is really important to educate them, because maybe they just don't know, because that's what they were taught. So I think maybe that's important as well, if they're the ones that are leading the changes in the family. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's education. It should be for all generation, not just the youngsters. But the thing is, if we talk about it in open, so again, it's not a taboo to talk about fertility, and it's not just making sure it's not a stigma, it's not shame that you can't have children. So even if you want children and you can't for any reason, it doesn't make you a less person for that.
No, and I think education
without it.
I totally agree, and I think educating men as well about not being ashamed to get tested or look at medical get medical advice. They shouldn't be ashamed, because it's nothing to be ashamed of. If something could be fixed, perhaps, or that perhaps you can't, then you look at other options. There was we looked at surrogacy as well, which my husband wasn't keen on. I looked at loads of things, but then adoption seemed like the right thing to do, and we are very happy with our choice that we've made. And we talk about it a lot, adoption and fertility, wherever we are, because I think it's something not to be ashamed of. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm very proud of what we've done, and I encourage others to look into it. It might not be for everyone, but I think talking is really important, and talking to your children, if family members as well, and not being embarrassed, because I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about.
Yeah, as we always say about any other stuff, when you talk about it, you break the taboo, you break these walls about it. So it's freely talking about it, and then through talking you can get a lot of support, you can get ideas, you can be enlightened by others saying. There's something else that's been practiced in Egypt, and I'm saying about in Christian community, and I think now it's getting to everyone, is they have premarital medical examination. So just to make sure that there is no medical issue in both, the couple, and they have to sign it, and they give them also not mental health education, but like a course introducing them about marriage and the life and all that stuff. I think that's a good thing to be done and to be all over that, because in our communities, a lot of it's not a love story, or you don't meet someone and it's not your cousin, it's not arranged marriage as it is, but it's, you know, it just, well, someone saw you, someone liked you, and, you know, you get on with marriage. So you don't know the person well. And of course, in our community, we don't live together before marriage. So I think a course like this and medical examination would help to avoid problems after marriage. I don't know if any other community.
That actually sounds really good. Like
it
that
sounds
idea.
brilliant. Sounds brilliant for someone haven't got the problem. But for example, if that two people going for this examination, we decided to be together, or is it arranged, not arranged? But just on another side, if problem will appear, so like you don't love me anymore. Like, you know, I'm not from there. Obviously, I'm not from your country, so you know, I may have.
Ba-da-bum, bum, bum. Ba-da-bum, bum. Ba-da-bum, bum, bum.